you think the whole South Downs from Eastbourne to Winchester, just sheep, sheep, sheep. And if people can remember that far back, they will remember the huge flocks of sheep. They'll remember the grass. Richard Jefferies, the country writer, has got an amazing description from the 1880s of how don't go up on the downs in the winter. You'll get lost because you won't know where you are because it all looks the same. How in the great winter of 1880 to 81, over 30 people died on the downs in the snow. I mean, you're not going to get anyone that old, unfortunately, but you are just about possibly going to get people who remember that completely different landscape of the downs and the sheep. And then in the Second World War, loads of it was dug up for Dig for Victory when the country was trying to feed itself. And a huge amount of area went under the plough. And then another huge area was given over to the military. It was all a military training zone. You know, there were tanks, there was artillery, absolute transformation of the landscape. And obviously the military part of it disappears, but the ploughing up carries on. That if you look at all the unimproved chalk grassland that existed in 1939, only 2% exists today. That was in 1990. The whole look of the downs has changed and the whole use of it has changed. So I think to get that sort of information from people you talk to is so useful. And you know, and what they felt about it, you know, because it then became different. You get fences and then you get footpaths. You can't just walk across the potato field or the cabbage field like you could have done when it was sheep. I think the other thing I'd say as well is that you're not a journalist, you know. So if you watch Newsnight, the journalist often speaks a lot more than the politician, you know, because they're trying to get them to tell the truth, you know. The best oral history interview, when you play it back, is the one that's 95% the interviewee and 5% the interviewer. If it's 50-50, something's going wrong, because obviously there's a real danger that if you intervene too much, you're directing the interview. And I'm going to play you a tape of a colleague of mine, long since dead, but he interviewed some of the old people he learnt folk songs from. But he directs them. Oh, you know, that must have been terrible. I bet you thought that was awful, didn't you? Oh, well, it wasn't so bad. Yes, but it must, you know, and then of course that, or stopping them because he's not really interested in what they're saying. He wants them to talk about something else, you know. Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Don't let them tell you for 10 minutes how they made a cup of tea and got a Bourbon biscuit and blah, blah, blah. But it's important. If you stop people too often and interrupt them too often, they then feel like, oh, I'm not giving you the right answers, or oh, they must think I'm stupid. And then, of course, they'll dry up and they won't speak. But early on, I'd go back and think, oh, yeah, that was a great interview. Go back and listen to it, and there's this awful noise. You know, what on earth is that noise? I can hardly hear. And it's like the central heating system coming on. That when you're talking to someone, in our human brain, we filter it out. But when you play it back, it's dreadful. Or van reversing, or chainsaws, or aeroplanes. Of course, we don't get many of those now, do we? But that used to be a dire thing, an aeroplane, and traffic. So it's worth thinking about when you're doing your interviews, what are the noises that I might be filtering out, but actually on the recording would be quite intrusive. And permissions, of course. You've got the permission form now, haven't you?
Yeah.
It's not like it's a legal requirement, but it's just good practice. And it's also good practice that really before we put any interviews up on the website, that people, even though they've given the permission, they still may have said something that when they hear it, they may think, oh, I didn't really mean it like that. So again, we're not Sun journalists, you know, we're not trying to catch them out. Oh, too late, you know. When you start an interview, get people to say their name and date of birth, because that could get lost. And if it's there at the beginning of the interview, you definitely know who the person is and when they were born. And if people say, well, why do you want to know that? Just say, well, you know, it's good to know when you were born, because that helps us judge the events you're talking about. It's not a problem. Occasionally someone doesn't like giving their date of birth. And then you can always say, well, we don't have to put it on anything we publish, if you rather we didn't. And the other thing is I always start by asking, what's your earliest memory? The oldest person I ever interviewed was 100 and... I can't remember now, she's 104, 106. Pretty damn old. And I said, what's your earliest memory? And she said, oh, well, my earliest memory was I was at school in Fittleworth, and I was crossing the road to the Swan, you know, the Swan pub at Fittleworth, and then this gamekeeper's dog had been bitten by a bee and was going mad, and it came over and it dug its teeth right into my leg, and all the teeth went right into my leg, and then the keeper was over the road and he had his gun and he had to decide what to do, so he decided to shoot the dog, and it was either have to shoot the dog or shoot me, and he shot the dog, and then the dog's death grip, it ripped into my leg, and they had to come there and just pull the jaws off.
That's a great memory.
But actually, she loved telling it.
Yeah.
And then she said, and it was all in the West Sussex Gazette. And going back to what I said about people reworking their memories and dramatising it, and I went back to the West Sussex Gazette, and I did, and I found the article, and it was just about how she described it. You know, and the gamekeeper saying, you know, what could I do? I was frightened for the child's life. I thought I had to shoot the dog dead. And she remembered amazing things like Christmas. What did you do for Christmas decorations? Oh, we went out in October, November to pick up all the leaves that had fallen, and then we dried them and then we hung them around the house. What did you get as Christmas present? Oh, an orange and a sugar mouse. It was wonderful. You know, that was brilliant. And the nurses.
Yes.
Could you tell us a bit about that, please?
Well, there were no district nurses as of now, and the district nurses that we had were the Queen's nurses, and they lived in a house in Christchurch Road, I think it was, and she used to come along twice a day to minister unto me, and she was a very pleasant girl. Well, I thought she was old, but of course she was no older than my sisters, who were all older than me. And she introduced me to Winnie the Pooh. Her brother had given her the book, which was published in 1916, I think, something like that. And
anyone got any thoughts on that just listening to it?
Little thing to someone who's experienced it a lot, or you know, it's part of them. They might not see the value in telling you, but.
That's true, and people do often say that, or you won't want to hear this, or I don't think I've got anything to tell you, because if you're saying, oh, we're doing a history project, oh, I don't really know anything about history.
Facts and facts.
Yeah,
and,
that's it. Then people can get that. That's absolutely true. People get so worked up that they can't remember a date.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter, you know. Oh, was it 1926? Was it 1927? Oh, was it? Oh, it was 1926. And then they start to go, no, it's 1926. and that's not really what you're interviewing them for, because you can find all that sort of stuff out from documentary sources. It really is the detail, the human part of it all. A photograph so good, because you can ask some people about something, and if you don't say it in a way that it's stored in their mind, they don't know about it. Because you show them a picture, you know, and they call it something else, you know, I don't know. Do you remember Slow Fair at Chichester? Oh no, I don't remember about that. And show a picture, oh no, that was Gooseberry Fair. You know, that sort of thing, where the way it's stored in their mind isn't the way you're asking them, but photographs are great. And what's just come to my mind, literally, the Garland Collection. Have you come across that?
Oh yeah, I have, and I have. There's Fittleworth pictures that I want from in there of the lane that Dad lives in, and I can't blinking getting to get them. The ones that I want are only in the
Garland took loads of photographs round here in the 20s and 30s. So there may be photographs of people, old people he took then, who old people now might remember. And that would be a great connection, wouldn't it? You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well worth looking at. Amazing photographer.
The record office being helpful in what they're.
So yeah, hopefully that's a sort of useful introduction. You know, a snapshot of how I got involved and how I see the oral history and how it's useful.